Hello everyone, this is Zarko, and in this video we're going to be installing MySQL on a Mac computer. So to start things off, let's first make sure that you open my written notes that I created for this video tutorial. You can see the link here, but I definitely don't want you to retype this link. Instead, go to the video description of this very YouTube video and you can find that link there and you can just click on it and open the notes that I created for this video tutorial. Here I extracted the download links that we're going to be needing while following this tutorial, and also some of the terminal configuration lines that we're going to have to execute to get MySQL set up on our computers. So make sure that you open up these written notes and have them ready on the side while watching this video tutorial. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is downloading and installing the MySQL Community Server. So I already extracted the download link here. You can just click to follow it, or you could open google.com, for example, and search for MySQL Community Server Mac download, and it's going to typically be the first result. Just make sure that you're opening up this MySQL.com official website. So check your address bar here. We don't want to download anything from like an unofficial source for security reasons, basically. On this downloads page, you're going to be seeing a menu with three options here: the version, the operating system, and the OS version as well. So it typically offers this innovation version. We won't be selecting that. Instead, click on this first menu item here and then select the LTS version. So it's the long-term support version, the stable version that we want to pick. Keep in mind that this might be a different version by the time you're watching this video in the future. So just make sure to pick the LTS version, whatever it is at the time of you watching this. So I'm going to click here. It's 8.4.3 at the time of recording this video. Now for the operating system, it should pre-select macOS for you if you're opening this page up from a Mac computer. So just make sure that's selected as well. And at this point, it would also be a good time to take note of this line here with this blue exclamation point. It's basically saying which versions of macOS are supported for the specific MySQL version that you picked here. So in this case, I have to be running either macOS version 15 or 14 to have this properly working on my system. I do have macOS 15, so that's good for me. In the future, you might see even higher macOS versions here and the higher MySQL version as well. So just make sure that you have the proper version. If you don't have a newer version that satisfies these conditions here, then you might need to go to the archives here and go back version by version to find the one that actually says here in this line that it supports your macOS version. If you're not sure which exact macOS version you're running, what you can do is open up the system settings. So you can go to the top left corner here, click System Settings. So you click on the Apple icon first, then click System Settings, click on that as well. Then make sure that the General tab is clicked here on the left-hand sidebar, and then click About. Now this will show which exact version you're running here. So mine is 15.1.1 at the time of recording this video. And also while you're here, take a note of the chip or the processor information. So I'm running Apple M1 Max. So that's going to also be important to pick the correct installer for MySQL. So you could be running M1, M2, M3, M4, or even something higher in the future. Or you could be running an Intel processor. So take a note of that here. I'll just leave this About page open here, and I'll go back, click back to my browser so we can continue selecting our download here. And while I'm here, I'm just going to show for anyone who's using an older Mac OS, I want you to get this installed as well. I'll just quickly show how you can actually find a good version for your system. So you would click on Archives here, and then you will see a list of all the past versions. So you can go just back one by one. So this was the LTS version was 8.4.3, for example. Then you go back version by version, you click on it, and then you keep checking this line. After each click, this will refresh. For example, if I go a bit more back, let's say here, you can see that it changed. And you can, for example, if you're using macOS version 12, you can see that this version is compatible with it. So that's the one you would choose there. Now let's talk about which exact download link to pick. I'll go back to the previous page here because that's the version that worked for me. But yeah, the choice from here is going to be similar even if you're downloading an older version. Basically, you can see here, you want to, of course, target this DMG archive. And you can see there are two entries here. One is the ARM or ARM entry, and the other one is x86. If you click on this Select OS version menu, basically that's the same choice. Now this is where the processor or the chip that your Mac computer is using comes into play that I talked about just earlier. If we go back to our settings here, the general about interface, again, you want to check the chip if you're using Mac M1, M2, M3, or M4, or even higher M processor. Then you want to select this ARM version here. So you want to select ARM. If you see that you're using an Intel processor in the About page, then you want to pick x86 here. Since I'm using the M1 processor, I'm going to pick ARM here. But again, it might be different for you if you're using an Intel processor, for example. Now this filters it out so I can see the DMG archive that I need to download for my exact Mac computer type. And I can just click the download button to get it started. Here, you don't have to actually sign up or log in. You can just click no thanks, just start my download, and then your download should indeed get started. So it might take some time to download, but yeah, we can just patiently wait until it's done. Okay, after the download is done, you can actually find it here in your browser downloads or in your downloads folder. You can just click on it to get it started basically. And you should see this window pop up here. It's showing this kind of a box icon with the PKG file. You can just double click on this to get the installer started. Now, at this point, in some circumstances, you might actually see macOS reject to start this installer. It would say something along the lines of it's coming from an unidentified developer, and then you just have an option to click OK and it exits out. Keep in mind, I did not get this currently. Maybe that's because I installed MySQL on this system in the past, or maybe they changed it. But in case you're using an older version and you get that issue where you cannot run the installer here, you will need to open up your system settings again. Click the Apple icon on the top left, click System Settings. Then you would need to scroll through this left-hand sidebar here until you find the Privacy and Security tab. So you would click on that. And then you would scroll through this interface until you find something along the lines of the MySQL installer attempted to be started. And you would want to allow that from this interface here. I think it should be in the Security tab. So find it here, allow it, and then you can continue with the installation process. Again, I did not get this problem this time, but if you do, make sure to do that. If you did not get this, then that's fine. You can just close this out and focus back on the installer itself. So I'm just going to click on the installer and continue explaining the process. So the first thing that you're going to see in the installer is that it will run a program to determine if the software can be installed. So it's kind of a security measure here. You want to click allow. Next, you will be taken to this welcome page of the installer. You can just click continue here. Now you will see the license term agreement. You want to carefully read all these license terms. And then if you agree with them, you want to click continue again, and it will actually double check with you. If you agree, you would click this agree button. You kind of have to agree, or else you won't be able to use MySQL. So that's one thing there. Now on this next step, you can just leave install for all users off this computer and then click continue again. This shows how much space it will take. So make sure that you have enough space for this, and you don't have to customize anything here. You can just click the install button. Now it starts the installation process, but first it's asking for our Mac administrator user password. So make sure that you're indeed logged in with your administrator account to your Mac computer. Type in the password, then you can press enter or just manually click install software here. and it's going to then start the installation process. Now on this configuration step here, it's going to ask that you enter and create a new MySQL root password. So it can be, and yeah, we can see a notification here that software from Oracle America was added as a background item. So that's good, that's fine. You can close this notification here. And again, back in the installer, you want to create a new MySQL root password. So you can think of a brand new password here. The important thing is that you remember this password. So I'll just write one here. So think of your password. As you're typing, you will see that this button is going to turn from being grayed out to being an active button. That means that you typed enough characters for your password here. So after that's done, you also want to make sure that this checkbox is checked indeed. So you want to start MySQL Server once the installation is complete. So it should be already pre-selected, but yeah, just make sure it is indeed checked. Now, after you specify the password here and remembered it, again, you have to remember it, because if you don't, you won't be able to use MySQL that you're currently installing. So again, remember the password specified here, retype it if needed, just make sure that you correctly typed it and remembered it, and then you can click this finish button here. Now it's going to ask for your Mac administrator user password again, so make sure to type that as well. So I'm typing it here now, then press OK here, and that should complete the database setup as well. And yeah, so it was successful, and we can click close at this point. It will offer to move the MySQL installer to the trash. So unless you want to keep it, you can select that option too. We can also close off this browser tab here. We don't need that anymore. Now, at this point, we still have more work to do, but let's first check and make sure that the MySQL server was correctly set up and that it started correctly on our computer. So click the Apple icon on the top left again, click System Settings again, and then here in the left sidebar, scroll down. It should be at the bottom or towards the bottom here. You should see this MySQL entry that appeared. So you want to click on that, and this is the MySQL settings interface here. What's important here is that you identify these green circles here. That means that the server is properly running, so you want to see green circles there. If these circles are by any chance red, that means that the server is not running. Then instead of the stop button here, you would see a start button. You would want to try to click that and see if the red circles turn into green circles again. If they don't, you might try to initialize the database and then click the start button again. But if you're seeing green circles here, that means everything is correctly running, so you don't have to touch anything, and you just want to make sure that this checkbox is indeed checked. It should already be checked, but yeah, just make sure. So you want to start MySQL whenever your computer starts up. Also, you have an option to uninstall MySQL here if you ever want to do that in the future, but of course that's not something that we want to do right now. So since everything is good here, the circles are green, everything is running, we can actually close out these settings and we can start configuring our terminal to work with MySQL. To start with that, you can open up your terminal. You might have it here down at the taskbar, or you might need to click the launchpad, for example, and then start typing terminal, and you should see this terminal app pop up. You can click on it to open it up here. Now at this point, if we try to use the MySQL command, which is used to start MySQL in the terminal, we're going to get this error, so command not found. So this is where our written instructions come into play, the terminal configuration section. So we have to figure out which type of terminal on our Mac computer we're using. So there are two options. There's the ZSH terminal and there's the bash terminal. Now to determine this, you need to select and copy this echo $shell command and then navigate to your terminal. Then right click, you can paste it there, and then press the enter key and you should see some specific output. So there are two options, as I mentioned. The first one is /bin/zsh, or you might see /bin/bash here. If you see ZSH, then you can check the installation notes here. Then you would copy this command. Again, if you got, on the other hand, bash as the output, then you would copy this command. So since I got ZSH as my output, I'm going to select this one, and then I'm going to right click, copy it, I move to my terminal again, and then right click, paste it here, and then press enter. If you're not sure about this, even by checking this output here, you could technically just copy both of these commands and then enter both of them in the terminal. You would just add one extra that is not needed, but it won't make any harm as well. So that's kind of the brute force approach there. But yeah, otherwise, do the echo shell command. If you get the ZSH, copy this command here. If you get the bash response, on the other hand, copy and enter this command here. So after that's done, you would actually want to click the red X button here to quit your terminal, and then we will start it again. So you could do it from the taskbar or from the launchpad. You can type terminal again, click on it here. And now if we try the MySQL command, let's say MySQL space -- version, now we see that we get the version that we just installed as the output. So the command is now found. Now, how we start MySQL properly here is by typing this exact command. So you would type MySQL space -u space root, another space here, then -b. So be careful to type this command exactly as you can see it here. All the spaces and dashes are important. You also have it in the written notes. You can copy it from there as well. And then when you're sure it's correct, you can press enter here. Then it will prompt you to enter a password. This will be the MySQL password that you created for the root user during the installation process, the one that I told you to remember. So now it's time to use it. So be sure to type it here. Keep in mind it won't show any feedback that you're typing any letters, so it just stays still like this, but it's actually registering your keystrokes. So just carefully type your password and then press enter. I typed it, now I'm pressing enter here, and yeah, I'm inside of the MySQL shell and it seems to be connecting correctly and everything is working. We can try to type some MySQL commands here. Let's say show databases. We can see some of the built-in pre-existing databases. So you could do something like create database Zarko, let's say here. And then if we press the up arrow, we can go to our past commands. You can press it twice. And then it will go back to this show databases command. We can press enter again, and you will see that the Zarko database is also now included that we just created here. So that's good. We can do something like select 5+5, let's say, press enter. We're getting results. So you can study the usage of MySQL later on. This tutorial is focused on getting it installed and set up. And for now, we're doing a good job. Now we can proceed with the next steps. And that next step would be to install the MySQL Workbench GUI or graphical user interface application that you can also use in addition to the MySQL shell in the terminal. You can also use it to interact with your MySQL database. So I extracted the download link here already. You can just click on it and follow it, or you could Google MySQL Workbench Mac download. Make sure that you select the mysql.com official website again and find this page. Again, you can double check it in the address bar here. Now here, you can just choose the latest version as well. So here it's 8.0.40. I'll keep that. If you had an older macOS version and you had to download the community server from the archives, then you could also go to the archives here and then find the matching version, the exact matching version for MySQL Workbench, and download that as well. But otherwise, you don't need to do anything here, so you don't have to change it. You might see a higher version by the time you're watching this tutorial, but yeah, you can keep that as long as it's compatible with your current macOS version here. In any case, here we want to make sure that macOS is selected. It should be pre-selected here. And then for the OS version, this is the same story that we already discussed while downloading the MySQL Community Server. So ARM, the option is for the M1, M2, M3, or M4 or higher M processors for Apple Silicon. You would choose that option. If you had an Intel processor, then you would choose x86. If you forgot which chip or processor you're using, again, you can go click on the top left Apple icon, System Settings, and then click General, About, and you should see the chip or the processor entry and make your selection based on that. So I have the M processor, so I will choose the ARM option from this installer. Again, it might be different for you if you're using maybe an Intel processor. Now you will see this DMG archive listed here. You want to click the download button, and then again, you don't have to sign up or log in here. You can click no thanks, just start my download, and then wait for it to finish. So this one was quicker. You can start it here from the browser downloads or find it in your downloads folder, and you will see this interface. Let me just center it here. So what you need to do here, as noted, is drag the MySQL Workbench icon to the applications folder. So you hover your pointer above this MySQL Workbench icon here, left click and hold. As you're holding the left click, drag it to the applications folder, and then you can just release it there. Now just wait, and it should say it's copying it to your applications here. And after that's done, you can actually press X here to close it. You can also close this browser tab. We don't need it anymore here. And now you can again search in your system here. You can click the Launchpad, and then you can type MySQL Workbench without any spaces here, as you can see, and you should see this icon appear. You can then click on it, and on the first run, it's going to ask if you're sure you want to open this app, download it from the internet. We download it from the official MySQL website, so we can click open here, and then you should see the application open. You can focus on this MySQL connections part here. You should already have this local instance added here, so you can click on it to connect. If you don't have anything here by any chance, then you will need to add it manually. You can do that by clicking this plus icon here. Again, if you have it already added, as I do here, then you don't have to click the plus icon. You don't have to do anything. But I will just cover this in case any one of you don't have it automatically listed. So you would click the plus icon in that case, and then you would specify the connection name, like something like local DB, let's say. Then the host name would be this one, 127.0.0.1, and the port would be 3306, the default one. Username should be set to root, and then you would click this button to set a password. This would be your password that you created during the MySQL installation process. Again, the one that I told you to remember. I won't be doing this because I already have the connection listed, but those would be the steps. You would set the password and click OK. Again, I don't have to do this, so I'll just cancel out of it. And yeah, if you created it, you will see this option to connect to it. So you would click on it, and then you would get this connection warning. This happens because I believe there are no plans to update MySQL Workbench for the newest MySQL Community Server versions. So it's just claiming it might not be compatible and might not support some of the newer MySQL features. I use MySQL Workbench with some of the newer MySQL versions. I did not face any really big trouble. But if you do, and if your work really relies on using MySQL Workbench, then you might need to actually download and install MySQL Community Server version 8.0 point something. So not 8.4, but 8.0. But again, if everything is kind of working for you as you try this application out, then you might not need to do that. In any case, you can click Don't Show This Message Again, so it does not pop up every time, and you can click Continue anyway. Now at this point, if you're connecting for the first time, it might ask for your MySQL root user password, again the one that you created during the MySQL installation process, so you would type it there, and you would also have an option to actually save it so you don't have to retype it every time. So here we can start typing some MySQL code. Let's say show databases. Again, Then you can click this lightning icon here to execute the code, and you can see the results, so the built-in databases and the one that we created as well. So we can do again select 1 + 1, execute that with the lightning icon again, and you see the result pops up here. So it seems like everything is working, the connection is established, and you can use MySQL Workbench to interact with your MySQL database. So we successfully installed MySQL, the local community server, on our computer. We configured it. We made it work with the terminal as we've seen, and we also got MySQL Workbench to function with it as well. So if you're satisfied at this point, that's basically it. But I'll just show you one more extra graphical user interface tool similar to MySQL Workbench that should work with even newer versions of MySQL. So let's close MySQL Workbench at this point and just look back to our written instructions. So DBeaver is that application that I was just mentioning. So dbeaver.io/download. You can follow it from here as well. I can check the address. Here on the downloads page, you can download the community version that should be free here. If you scroll down, you should see macOS X downloads. You have two options again here. So this is similar to what we faced with our earlier downloads. If you're using a Mac M1, M2, M3, M4, and so forth processor, so the M processor for Apple Silicon, you would choose this download. If you're using an Intel processor, you would choose the second option here. So we already checked, again, system settings, general, and then the about page in the settings. You can rewind the video if you're not sure. We checked it before as well. I'm using the M1 Max processor. So in my case, I would choose this Apple Silicon link here. Yeah, the download already finished. So again, quick one. You can click on it here from the downloads, and this will open up kind of the installer for the DBeaver app here. So you want to hover over the DBeaver icon here, click and hold, again left click, drag to the applications folder, and this should get the app installed. So you can exit out of this again. We can close this browser window too, and now we can go to our launchpad again, and you can type in DBeaver to find the app icon here. You can click on it. Again, it says that the app is downloaded from the internet. You can click open here. Now here, it will ask you if you want to create a sample database. You don't need to do this, so you can click no here, and then it will ask you to connect to a database. So you would find MySQL here, or you can just search for MySQL as well if it's not popping up right now. But yeah, choose this MySQL option, so not the old legacy one, but the new one here, and then click next. And here you can keep server host as at localhost port 3306, that's fine. Username should indeed be root, and then here you want to provide the password that you created during the MySQL Community Server installation process. Again, the one that I told you to remember. So you can choose to save it if you don't want to retype it every time, and then you should be able to click the finish button here. And it's also asking if you want to share data for usage statistics, so it's anonymous. But I prefer not to do this, so I'll select do not share data here and then press confirm. And then at this point, you should see this localhost MySQL connection here on the left. If you did not get the automatic prompt to add it, you could also click on this icon here to add a new connection. But since we already added it, we can click cancel here. So you can click on localhost or double click it here, and then on the first run, it might ask you to download driver files for MySQL, so you can click the download button here, wait for it to finish, so it was quick again. And now if you enter the correct password for the root user for MySQL, it should be connected. So from here, if you check the databases, you can see this built-in one and the Zarko one that we created earlier. Now you could click SQL here, and then you can start writing some code again. Let's say show databases, and then you can click this play icon to execute the SQL query. and we see it showing results. So it seems like it's working fine. So this is another option if you want to use a graphical application with modern MySQL versions. Finally, this is it for the tutorial. So we went through a lot here. We shown how you install the community server. We did the proper terminal configuration. We installed or set up MySQL in the terminal here. Then we installed MySQL Workbench and the DBeaver, a graphical user interface application, so you can use those with MySQL as well. So thank you for watching this video. If you found it useful, please take a second to like the video. You can share it as well, and you can subscribe to my channel. All this means a lot to me, so please do that again if you found it useful. Otherwise, I want to thank you for joining me today for this process, and hope to see you in some of the future videos. This was Zarko, so take care and goodbye.